You know those movies where you like they fall into a Disney animated movie? Like I feel like hello and welcome to a newly revamped version of VR Download, a weekly show about VR industry news and whatnot. Hello, I am your very animated host, Kyle. And let's see what other wonders of magic we have on the panel with me today. Over to my left here.
Hello, everyone. Ian Hamilton here with my first version of these avatars. I don't feel right. I don't feel okay. I feel like, I don't know, out of body experience.
I'm David Heaney. We were not running our show yesterday just so we could fix the last few bugs with this, but from now on we'll be back to our normal Monday schedule, Monday at 10 a.m. PT. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about the VR tech news this week.
VR tech news. Who wants to talk about VR tech news when we've got these awesome avatars to play with? Like, I feel like just doing stuff. And yes, the glasses are hard coded into the avatar now. Thanks, Mark Zuckerberg. You know, it's actually hard coded.
No glass. No glass, though. And no
glass. I want to say hi to some of the people here in the chat because we are live on YouTube. And once the new avatar finger can find there it is. Okay. So it looks like we've got some folks that we have normally. Abzar, Onakazi, Skiva. What's up, my dog? All right. MX Morningstar, butt or something. Let's see. Abzar says hashtag not my Kyle.
Heaney, if I left the studio right now and tried to change my avatar, what would you give the odds that it breaks everything?
I'd say you should be fine. It should be fine if you really want to.
I mean, that's tempting. I don't know because I'm not really sure.
Is this just because somebody said you look 12?
Well, I don't like it. I liked it when they said I looked like Carl Sagan. I don't like this look.
Well, I mean, Ian, this is your Disney-fied avatar.
Oh,
you know what this is? You know what this is? Because Ian and I were just talking, and I said that my avatar feels a little thin, like he needs a sandwich or something. I have avatar anxiety, and I think that that's going to be a real thing. People are going to feel disconjoined from their avatar. I mean, it's different when you do it on purpose and like, look at me, I'm, some spoder man in VR chat or something like that. But we're talking about, I'm trying to be representative of myself. And I look like I got dressed on the set of Miami Vice. I mean, this is not hashtag not my Kyle. I'm liking that.
Uncanny Valley for embodiment is not a fun place to go into if you go into the wrong parts of that valley. Like, you don't want to look in the mirror and not see yourself in certain circumstances. I don't know. And hands, like my hands are I don't feel as expressive with them. What's going on with this?
All right.
James
well,
O'Loughlin, I was just going to reply to James O'Loughlin's comment. Yes, these are the new Meta avatars. They will soon be deprecating the old Oculus avatars that we use. But the good thing about this update is that we've modularized our avatar networking code. So in future, we plan to support Ready Player Me avatars in time for the Lynx R1 headset coming out. Because while you can use this avatar system on other platforms, you can't customize your own avatar unless you have a Meta headset. So we want to be able to bring people in who don't have Meta headsets and who get the Lynx in future. So this is just the first avatar system that we're supporting.
Yeah, and Ian, your avatar went from looking like Carl Sagan to now you look like the kid that walks up to other kids on the playground, knocks toys out of their hands, and then laughs.
There's like this one kid. I've watched this one kid in like 4 different movies recently. He's that character in all the movies made in the last 2 years. He just went out and said, I'm going to be that mean kid on the playground. And yeah, I think I look like him. Okay.
Yeah. All right. On to the news. I swear this is a news show. I swear to you. It is. Here it comes. All right. First on the agenda today, Bloomberg, Apple headset probably won't ship this year. Due to overheating cameras and software, Apple recently informed suppliers its mixed reality headset probably won't be ready to release this year, despite what certain personalities on Twitter may claim they know. Yeah, so this isn't really it. This is just a artist's rendition. This is a crime sketch, like have you seen this man? contact the FBI.
Until it shows up in a bar in Cupertino, this is the best image we're going to have to go off of it.
There's a joke there somewhere, Ian. An Apple developer walks into a bar, and I'm gonna make that joke. But yeah, so what is this? Like are we 2025, 2035, 2045? When are we waiting for this?
Yeah, I mean,
What do we know?
So Bloomberg's report essentially is saying that Apple is running into three main issues with this headset. That means that it's changed its plan to launch this year to instead launch next year. And those three issues are overheating of the chip that they're trying to put in it, the sourcing of the cameras. This thing is supposed to have 12 cameras in total for high quality mixed reality, hand tracking, and eye tracking, and software. So that's pretty vague, but it sounds like from what we've seen in job listings, Apple is trying to build a completely new operating system for this thing called Reality OS, ROS. And from the signs of it, the overheating issue is really the main issue delaying this thing. And if you remember our show a few weeks ago, we reported on a supply chain analyst claiming that this headset will have an M1 chip or a chip that is equivalent to M1. And that's Apple's first sort of custom PC chip that you see in the current MacBooks that they've launched. And that's a pretty powerful chip, but it's more power hungry than the likes of the Qualcomm Snapdragon XR2 that we see in headsets like Oculus Quest 2 and Vive Focus 3. So it looks like they're trying to deliver a very powerful headset, but the trade-off there is that they're going to have to work really hard to get the cooling right to make that a practical product.
So it's face melting.
I didn't hear anything Heaney said because I felt like Chucky.
What? Are you still on about your avatar?
Yeah, man. Like I am embodied as a. I'm still like I'm in another place. I'm not like here right now. I'm in this like robot doll person mind space. Yeah.
Okay.
Remember that game?
So
yeah.
are there
Mind
batteries? Are batteries we can take out, or like what?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so two things. Number one, I just noticed that when you look at this thing sideways, it kind of looks like a robot with blue legs, like Ed 209, Ed 209 or something. This image, but it's melting people's faces off. I mean, how do you? The M1 chip. I mean, I have run some major high end stuff on my M1 MacBook, and have never felt it get warm. Like it may be mildly, like sort of warm, but it's not face melting. How bad does this have to be? I mean, do we need like giant heat sinks sticking off the front of it, like something out of like Mad Max type of thing, or like spikes? I mean, what do we need to do how are they going to fix this?
So the reason that you wouldn't see overheating on your Mac or even on the M1 iPad is it's all down to surface area. The larger the surface area of the device, the more it can dissipate the heat. So something like a laptop's obviously quite a large device compared to a headset that you put on your head. They're trying to put that same chip into a much smaller area. And we have heard that there is a cooling fan. But again, because it's in a smaller area, the cooling fan is going to be smaller than what you see in the MacBook Pro. And, the question I've keep wondering, and I've been wondering this for months about the Apple headset, is why don't they just use the A series chips in the iPhone? They would get longer battery life and they would still have higher performance than Quest 2, because Apple's mobile chips are even ahead of Qualcomm's. So it sounds like they really want this to be a high-end device. I mean, we've heard rumors of price points above $2,000. But the question is, can they really make that practical? And if this report's to be believed, it's going to add a year of delay in terms of what they're trying to aim for, just because they're trying to aim so high with this performance.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I guess that would probably be the smart thing to do, would be to aim for that high performance. But I mean, maybe they need to do like a full head, like a an X-wing fighter pilot type of helmet scenario. That the whole thing's a heat sink. I would wear that.
I always think about that there was that alleged Valve headset they called Vader for a while, they threw everything and the kitchen sink into that design, and they're like, this would cost several $1,000s. And I look at I bring this up almost every week. When I look at the design of Alex and the Gravity gloves, I think of how great those will be with eye tracking on the next generation headsets. And I hope Apple has that feature. The thing I was going to sort of ask Heaney is if it's got all of those sensors, can they turn off some of them and have it run, at the right coolant temperature until they're able to get it to run with all the sensors?
So I don't think the issue with cooling is specifically the sensors. That the camera issue is apparently in the yield of the cameras they're trying to use. From what we understand from these rumors and reports, Apple is trying to deliver mixed reality that looks like real life. They want cameras that are so high quality with such a high dynamic range and ability to work in all lighting conditions that you will put this headset on and it will look like it's transparent even though it's actually an opaque display system. So apparently the suppliers that they are talking to get these kinds of cameras are just having issues producing them at scale. You could make a few prototypes of these things, but actually getting a production line running up that can produce these very sort of precise sensors is what we hear is the issue.
Okay, so James, you make an interesting point. Again, what is up with the shoulder? Am I like sitting?
Yeah, I was watching it over with Heaney. There's like body language coming across from Heaney that I don't think he means to be like projecting, and it's like,
yeah,
Heaney, are you okay? And it's
not
like
aggressive. It's just awkward. Yeah, but anyway, okay. So James in the chat here says Apple only has one shot to make a first impression in this product category. I honestly doubt it will ship until the pandemic is behind us. Now, I had a huge conversation. Sorry, the shoulder thing is really getting to me. I had this huge conversation with someone about Spider-Man, the latest movie that's out in theaters and breaking records and all of this nonsense. Fantastic movie, highly recommend it. But there have been other movies that have come out in the theaters and been total stinkers and haven't done well. And the logic is, well, it's because of the pandemic that it didn't do well. No, it's because it was shit. It wasn't good. If it had been good, you wouldn't have to worry about that because Spider-Man was awesome and everybody went and saw it and it made records and blah, blah, blah. If Apple is going to put out a mediocre product that isn't going to do everything it claims that it's going to do, then yes, they should wait until after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's so good that it doesn't matter that the pandemic is happening, that people are still buying it, like the Quest. I mean, look at how many Quests were purchased during the pandemic. The price point was right. The offering was right. It was everything everybody wanted to be. I've got cousins who I didn't even know owned a phone who are now playing on Quest. It's like, okay, you have to have a good product. You no excuses. But that's just my hot take on that comment. But thank you, James. That's a good point.
Morningstar asks, can those mobile chips push the 8K displays well enough? So just to be clear, when a lot of companies say they're making an 8K headset and when rumors come along about an 8K headset, it usually actually is just dual 4K displays. I say just, that's still, quadruple the pixel density of what we're seeing in something like Quest 2 or PlayStation VR, where we're seeing 2K displays. But I still do. I think the question is, do they really need in their first gen product to have dual 4K displays running natively off this really powerful chip? Or could they just work on getting out something that works and doesn't have these overheating issues and then work on, blowing away the performance in the second generation? Obviously, Apple want to come out with a differentiator here. They don't want to just be able to, they don't want this to be described as just a different time of Quest. They want to deliver something that is actually closer to PC VR performance in a completely standalone form factor. And if they can do that, it will blow everything that Meta's doing out of the water, because Meta just doesn't have its own internal chip design capabilities yet, though we know they're starting to work on that. That'll take them, 3, 5, 10 years to actually get a product out there. But if they can do that, it will blow it away. But the question is, what is the cost of this kind of delay, and would it have been better to get out a first generation product instead?
Skiva here in the chat also says, I think the pandemic is what has been driving more headset sales, but hurting the suppliers, being able to produce enough parts for them. Double-edged sword. It totally is a double-edged sword, because while we want more products to allow us to get out there, the manufacturers can't produce this whole silicon shortage. I'm so tired of hearing about that. I hear that 5 times a day now. Like, I read it in an article, or I see it on the news, or I hear it in a podcast. Silicon shortage. Well, I heard that Intel just recently signed a contract to build a $20 billion chip manufacturing facility in Ohio, just east of Columbus. That could be good. Bring this, but the silicon itself is the shortage, right? Like the actual component, like the material, or is it the people making stuff out of it? I don't actually understand that part of it.
So it's the production, the building the fabs, the actual huge machines that pump out these chips in millions costs billions of dollars and takes many, many years. So it's one of those things that if you get a massive increase in demand, like there was in the pandemic, because people were at home more and they wanted to buy more home electronics, and the car industry kind of rapidly underestimated their demand, thinking that people would no longer want cars. Turned out that wasn't true at all. People bought cars just as much, if not more, than before. So right now, obviously, all those companies are doing that. They're building these new fabs to increase capacity, but it's just a matter of the fact that it takes years and the demand is increasing and increasing further. But I do think that's a very positive move to bring some chip manufacturing into the United States, even for geopolitical reasons, as tensions in the South China Sea increase. You want to make sure that you have access to critical electronic components without relying on a potential geopolitical adversary.
Exactly. Geopolitical adversary. Adam McCurdy, I got to say it. I prefer the old avatars. These are Meta's avatars, correct? Yes, they are Meta's avatars, which is why I'm all hunched over every time I put my hand up. Okay, stop that. Okay, let me just...
You gotta if you gesture with both hands simultaneously, it's a little bit like I'm moving like this.
I gotta put them both up at the same time, and then if I put one down, nope. Like the shoulders are like what's up with my scapulas, yo? Okay, so Apple. Are we going to have, is this going to be one of these things where the headset won't come out until it is absolutely perfect? That's Apple's typical MO, is that they're not going to put it out until it's amazing. I mean, 2007 gave us the iPhone, but it wasn't the first smartphone, but it did a bunch of stuff that was easier, but it was expensive. And then people slowly adopted it. Do we feel like they're going to follow that pattern, or has almost 20 years before this thing comes out after the iPhone, almost 20 years. What, I don't know. What are we going to get?
Heaney and I pore over these reports when they come out and try to piece apart the words and understand really what they're saying. And the thing I want to get across here with in an answer to Kyle's question is something that Heaney and I get into, and that's like, if Tim Cook and Apple are very invested in the idea of AR being the end game, and it's the same at Microsoft with HoloLens, them very invested in this end game of where every day out in the real world, AR being kind of what they're working towards. But there's a very real possibility here that opaque optics, where you block off the outside world and then reconstruct it digitally using sensors and pass-through color cameras, is going to provide the wider field of view, better experience for the next 5 to 10 years. And to Kyle's kind of point, like, it's kind of like a video game that comes out at the wrong time in a generational cycle. And like, it was built on an old engine and it's not going to do successful. Like, I don't know, was it Duke Nukem got rebuilt like 5 times over the years and never actually came out? And when it finally came out, it was a disaster. I do think that there's that real possibility, if you pick the wrong optical path for like your hundreds of engineers all working on one pass-through or see-through optical system, and you didn't invest in the opaque optics to the right degree. Heaney, I'm going to go. I've got a problem here. I'm going to leave and come back, but I wanted to see what you thought of all that.
Yeah, I think to kind of come back to the general point here of, will we see the same path of iPhone, where it's a higher priced device, but it changes the market because it's so much easier to use and better than the alternatives? I think that the problem is this time that Apple is facing a competition that also is vertically integrated. So Apple was kind of very easily able to attack the smartphone market because you had Google making the software, but other manufacturers making the hardware. And there was this disconnect that you just don't get when you're building the hardware and the software. But Apple has never actually faced competition that is vertically integrated and not trying to make a hardware margin. So people, a lot of people expect that Apple is going to come in here and just completely wipe the floor with Meta. And the problem is that Meta is going to be selling at cost, and they're going to be delivering the same magic of Apple, i.e., software that is specifically designed for hardware that is designed at the same time as the software. Apple's advantage will be in its ecosystem integration in terms of the fact that you will be able to bring your services and data and integrations from your iPhone, your Apple Watch, and your existing MacBook over, and they'll be able to leverage their iTunes content and things like SharePlay, so that you'll probably be able to sit down and watch Disney Plus together virtually with this headset. But it's not going to be as easy as it was for Apple to attack Android. It's just not going to be that easy.
I think what Apple's problem is going to be, the biggest challenge they're going to have is, sure, this headset's great, but can I play this? But can I play this? But can I play this? And that's going to take developers time to get their stuff ported over. And I mean, how many consoles have come out over the years that have, 7 games that work on it when it first launches? I mean, that's happened numerous times. People go out and drop $800 on a full setup of a new console. And Ian, what did you do?
I tried to change my avatar, and I came back here, and I don't know, man. It's it looks so different than what I had in the mirror.
Did you do?
Yeah.
Did you just drop into another show, get a makeover, and come back? What?
So I've got this like beeping sound stuck with my tablet here. So there's like a beeping in my ears right now, Heaney. I don't know what button I pressed on the tablet, and like I quit to solve that problem. And I decided to change my avatar on the way. And it's really jarring to change your avatar identity mid-show. I'm sorry to our audience. I'm sorry I've done this to myself.
Yeah.
And Heaney, I'm
you
going
used
nuts
to look like
of the beeping.
What? You used to look like a little kid at a playground. Now you look like the guy who asks the little kid if he wants some candy in his van. What did you just do?
Man. All right.
That's fine. No, I guess it'll be all right. Ian looks like Reese from Malcolm in the Middle. I'm gonna say, yeah, that's all right. All right. Hey, we want to talk to Ian now. Is Ian in there? Is Ian in there?
No, I have a completely different personality based entirely on the person that I am. All right, we will win. I'm like a football hero, maybe. Like,
are you like?
Did you ever play Mind Show? This definitely has a Mind Show feel to it.
I'm gonna start saying bruh.
Oh,
bruh.
Bruh.
Yeah. It's like, geez, Ian, what'd you do? Change your name to Kyle? Oh, wait, no, that hurts. Oh, yeah. Man. I hate that my name has become a stereotype. That's fine. Look at the way I'm dressed. Does it look like I care? All right, let's let's move on to the. Are we done with Apple? I mean, yes, it melts faces and it's not quite ready for prime time. Anything else that we need to say about it?
Just checking the comments here for any.
Okay.
Artful just pointing out that it likely won't be as much for games as it is for, experiences and social and media. I completely agree with that. Because we haven't heard anything about any kind of gaming controller from this headset, it probably will be less focused on the kinds of games that are popular on Quest 2. But then again, and this is probably the last thing I want to just say about the Apple headset, this is not going to compete with Quest 2. The real competition for this will be Meta's Project Cambria, which comes out this year. And if this thing is, $2,000 and Cambria is $1,000, and those are just prices I'm plucking from my head, that's going to be an interesting play there. And how close does Meta's headset get for something like half the price?
So I can already see it now, Apple, to capitalize on their traditional use of celebrities to hawk their new products. What'll end up happening is they'll bring in, to show that there's going to be no competition for this headset, they're going to bring in Tom Hanks, Gina Davis, maybe Rosie O'Donnell, Madonna, and they're going to say, Apple's new VR headset, A League of Their Own. Is that no, Ian? Don't
That
look at
was
me
a
like
stretch, and I do want to see
Was
that
it?
movie again, though. That's a
It's a
great
pretty good movie.
I
It's a pretty
don't like
solid
watching
movie.
the beginning and the end, though. Just watch the middle part. That those parts weren't there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you got to have context. You got to wrap it up.
No, you don't.
Beginning
You don't
and end
need
to
to
a
see them
story.
go to the old museum. Just tell us a story.
Oh. All right. Well, anyway, all right. Let's move on to the next piece of news, because it's kind of fun, especially since I haven't gotten it yet. But here's the news: Quest version 37 update adds hand tracking menu and Apple keyboard, and it's rolling out a couple days ago, and I still haven't gotten it. I don't know why. So that's where we're at. So when they first gave information about the Logitech K830 keyboard being compatible, and we were all like, "Oh, this is great! Let's all go out and get them and stuff." And I went and ordered myself one. I was like, "Oh wow, this is really cheap. It's like $39." But it's not, because the K830 is not the same keyboard as the K380. So I purchased a K380.
I can't do the gesture. If I do the gesture, I hear the weird sound ringing in my ear. So, like, if I do that gesture that's in the picture, I just have to look at it with my head.
Oh, is it the Guardian noise? Is it the Guardian?
Yeah, I'm
noise?
getting like a persistent beeping if I do any gesture with my fingers.
Yeah, it's just
maybe
it's
your
system bug.
Maybe it's your 5G
You need to restart your
vaccine
headset
chips.
to fix it.
I'll restart my headset, but I like people going through this journey of bad reality with me, because boy, I love going into realities, brand fresh new. Heaney, I can't put images up here because I don't think Heaney has that app on the tablet, but like prior to this, both Kyle and Heaney like put their headsets down and they died in the most awkward upside down spider crushed positions, and as soon as I can throw it up there, I will.
There's actually an interesting explanation for that. So what we did before, is when we were using the Oculus SDK, is we would detect the proximity sensor, and so when you take the headset off, we can just instantly disappear the avatar. The problem is, with the current version of the OpenXR integration, that proximity sensor always returns true, i.e. it thinks that you're always wearing the headset. So it's obviously just one of those little OpenXR issues. We've been running into quite a few of them in the past few weeks working on this update. The transition from Oculus SDK to OpenXR is a little rough and hasn't fully been bug fixed yet, but I think they are working on it, and they do plan to continue to work on OpenXR, and Oculus SDK is deprecated.
So maybe that was what was wrong with version 36. V36 is if you take your headset off mid-game, you die, your avatar dies, you do die in real life, so they had to go to version 37. I'm assuming that it's something like that. Just as a little side offshoot here, because it's the kind of show we are now that we're cartoons. I recently rewatched Lawnmower Man 2. Don't do that. That's a terrible movie.
No. That's
However,
the one that ends with Job's War or whatever. It's got that stupid subtitle and like
yes, and they brought in
the
Max Headroom actor. Matt Frewer, I think it is. He plays Job, and I mean, Lawnmower Man 2. First of all, it comes out in 1996, and they actually called their VR headset the iPhone. So just that's where that. Originated.
Yeah, I remember that. EYE phone.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. But the thing is that if you die in that cyberspace, which is what they called it, the internet, the information superhighway, all those terms that it just, it was so trite. It was terrible. It was fun. You die in real life if you die in the cyberspace that they created. And I was like, okay. So
one of the things I do want to do on this show is I think we should have a segment somewhere in the show where we review an old like 90s or 80s trope or something, and just throw an image up there from Wikipedia, and we'll talk about some really ridiculous thing. I was joking about this. I told you about this Tales from the Dark Side episode where you order these glasses and you see fruit begging for their lives in order to dye it, and so I love that. And it's like, they don't use the word AR in it at all. We don't have any debate over terms. You just have this nightmare vision of what these glasses could do if used in the wrong way.
I cut up a banana in my bran flakes this morning, and I could just hear it going, "Ow, ow, help me, help me, help me!" Yeah, no, that's morbid, Ian. Yes, I'm down. Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it. Ian and Kyle review movies. Oh, geez,
I know.
Come up with some clever name. Get guests in.
You've seen what is it? Is it them?
I've seen it.
Or they
Whatever
live?
it is.
Which one is the one with the 20-minute fist fight in the middle?
What?
Where you wear the glasses that always tell you to consume everywhere.
Oh, They Live. Yeah,
They Live. Yeah,
yeah. Roddy Piper. There's an actor for you. Okay. What were we talking about? Yeah, version 37. I don't have it, so one of you two is going to have to talk if there's anything further. I mean,
yeah.
The menu's cool.
Keyboard.
Yeah, the menu is very useful. In the past, when you were doing something like recentering with hand tracking, you had to do the menu gesture, and then you had to kind of point and pinch into the settings and then recenter. But with this little menu, you can recenter, you can mute your microphone, you can take videos, and you can use voice commands, all from a little kind of swipe menu. So again, you can kind of see it in the image there. If I manually put the camera back there, that little menu comes up and you just move your finger into the position of the action you want to perform. It makes hand tracking a lot more convenient as a kind of use case. And even in this software, I'm noticing it simply because the recenter is just so much more convenient.
Well, that's good. Can I stream to Facebook directly from my Quest 3 or Quest 2? Quest 3.
Quest 3 confirmed.
Quest 3 confirmed. Oh no.
Upload VR,
from my
Kyle.
Quest, from my HMD. Can I stream directly to Facebook from my Quest?
I think they
No
actually
longer.
took that out. Yeah, they took that
They took it
functionality
out.
out a few months ago because apparently
Yeah.
very few people were using it. And I think the obvious thing that people replied to that was, let us stream to YouTube and Twitch and we'll use it. But, Facebook's obviously trying to push, Meta is trying to push its own Facebook gaming live service, which is actually apparently growing pretty rapidly, but I still don't think it's anywhere near the scale of YouTube or Twitch.
I found myself this weekend with my 11-year-old and my 16-year-old daughters, and all three of us were back to back doing multiplayer Beat Saber. And I was like, oh, this is fun. Grandma and Grandpa might actually like to see this. Especially since I'm like the worst of the game because they're like prodigies at it, and I didn't realize that. And I suck, even on hard. And anyway, so I'm dead and I'm in spectator mode and I'm watching them play, and I'm like, this would be really cool to stream this to Facebook so that way the grandparents can see this. And I'm like, wait, where is that feature? And I'm like in the app, and I'm like, oh, that's right, they took it out. I finally want to use it and they took it out. So I'm upset. I was just going to record video and my battery was dead. So,
well, the easiest way to do it is to use the web browser casting. If you go to oculus.com/casting, you can cast your Quest there. And then obviously you would just use a software like OBS or another streamer to stream it. But I agree with you that it absolutely should be built in. And I think the very obvious reason is just they don't want to support the other streaming services.
It's one of those things where, because they ripped it out of the OS, that was an OS level feature to live stream straight to the Facebook app. Because they ripped it out, and because they're doing all this stuff with the account shifting, where maybe you aren't required to have a Facebook account. There's in the Messenger app, you've got multiple Messenger apps supported within this other messaging system. I could really see them doing something like that over time.
I was thinking it was probably the copyright problems of all the songs, and people are streaming something live and then it's going live.
They say it just
I don't know.
wasn't used much, and so it wasn't worth.
Why would you remove a feature? I guess.
Well, if you're building an OS where you want to release constant updates like Meta's doing, we're seeing every few months new features getting added. There is a maintenance cost to keeping updates or keeping features through these updates, and they obviously just think that it must have been very, very few people actually using it to get to the point where they would take it out. But I'm not surprised that very few people were streaming to Facebook Live from their VR headset.
So if you're just joining us here, some of you have noticed that I look like I'm a YouTuber. Beer, 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 beer. Okay, yeah, like and subscribe. Hit that bell, yo. Yes, these are the new Meta avatars. And so Adam and Pixel and all of you who are going, what is going on here? Yes, it's still me. I might add a little girth to my avatar to maybe make me not look so like either that or I need a scarf. I can't decide which way I want to go. Yeah, but here we are. So, okay. What's next, guys? Should we move on, or do we have anything else to say about version 37?
I think we can move to the next topic of news.
Okay. This one's pretty heavy.
I'll need to change the image. So you say what the news is. I'll change the image, which for our audience, if you're just joining us, will cause a minor freeze because I'll have to go to a different application on the computer.
Don't let Kyle have the freeze frame. I want the freeze frame. Come here.
Okay. All right.
No, don't go to Kyle.
Yeah.
So go ahead and read the news there, Kyle.
All right. So, sorry, Ian, here I come. U.S.
No!
United States federal. Let me try this again. United States Federal Trade Commission investigating Meta's competitive practices. The United States Federal Trade Commission is investigating Meta for potentially anti-competitive practices.
All right, so that on screen you see Lena Khan, who is the current head of the FTC, which is the U.S. trade regulator, the Federal Trade Commission, and they are currently investigating Meta for anti-competitive practices.
Totally. Yeah. So, folks, the little lag there is because of the hiccup, as I call it, the network hiccup when we throw stuff at Stevie. Stevie is not on the same wavelength as us just yet. Stevie needs a new avatar. Oh, see, we're gonna have to put some cool wrapper around Stevie.
For some reason, there's something. For some reason, the application isn't running in the background today. When I had to Alt Tab to bring up the image, the application is being backgrounded. We'll get that solved for next week. But
it's all good.
We don't actually have. We're feature complete here in this new update with OpenXR, except for the casting from our tablets. Usually, we can cast images from our tablets. It just searches through our entire UploadVR image library. But today, we kind of are launching without that, just because there's a few issues with some of the functionality of that and OpenXR. So I was doing it manually from the computer, because we do have a feature where you can just drag an image onto the application and it will cast it up. So that's what we're using. But yeah, Meta is being investigated for potential anti-competitive practices by the U.S. Federal Trade Commission.
So I remember back in the day, as Ian goes to discover what the third iteration of his avatar is going to look like. I know he's going to come back. He's going to have, what do you think? Dreadlocks and a full Viking beard. That's what I'm going to picture he's going to have. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. So I remember back in the day when Microsoft was being accused of, because of like Word and Excel and Office and stuff, that there was going to be, that they were anti-competitive. You just combed your hair.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Anyway. So yeah, Microsoft is like the whole anti-competitive, like Monopoly. I remember Microsoft Monopoly, and everybody wanted to actually play that game. I'm a big fan of Monopoly as a board game, so that'd be fun to do. But now Facebook is a monopoly, not because they bought Instagram, not because they bought Oculus, not because they bought WhatsApp, not because because they bought Supernatural. That's what triggered this investigation. Ian, I want to know what kind of comments you have on this.
Yeah, so we've been in conversation with devs for a long time. We've got kind of a record here on our own site of kind of pointing out a couple of these apps that are directly impacted by the market strategies that Facebook decides to pick here. And the one I'm thinking of in particular is, if you go back 5 years on our site, you'll find a Gear VR article, I think, where I uncovered like this language on the Oculus website where they're like, if you buy a movie, you grant access to 5 other people to watch that movie with you on Oculus's system. And so, like, even going back half a decade, they were working on a way for you to legally purchase content from them and then watch it with your friends in virtual reality. And you talk about overheating. Remember those original Gear VR phones, and you don't have any positional tracking, they still overheat after 20 minutes if you do too much on them, and you're streaming a movie from a server and doing avatar work and all those things. It never took off, and no one used that feature. Here we are 5 years later, or half a decade later, and Facebook is saying, in Horizon Home, you will be able to do some of the same functionality, but they have yet to reveal who those partners are or how it's going to work. And it's one of these things that over the course of the next 5 years, how much leeway we as people have in having content with us and streamed in that co-located way is going to be the way all of this is going to be played out. Like, it's going to be what we can share with others in virtual reality is going to be the ultimate battle of all these companies. And right now on Oculus, you can go mini golfing, playing Beat Saber, and the list goes on and on and on of things that Facebook is out in the lead on. And there's platforms like Big Screen that was there for years, with a platform that does a lot of the same things that Facebook does or is promising to do at a platform level. Well, if Facebook is demanding their 30%, it's only going to allow certain players to play at that level. Like, it's reserving a space in the market for only Meta to kind of pursue, or for other partners of like some kind of equal magnitude, like a Netflix, could actually be allowed onto that system. It's the other example is virtual desktop. We've had Guy Godin in our comments. I don't know if he's out there today, but he had Airlink streaming. He had virtual desktop streaming there, ready to go in the virtual desktop app from the very beginning. And it was buried in the features enough that the only people who would go find it and turn it on were people who knew where to look and knew what they were getting into. He could have put warnings on it from day one and said, "Hey, this is experimental. Your quality may vary." It could have been in there in the app. Instead, Facebook said, "No, you got to put this over SideQuest." And he had to people had to sideload and go through these ridiculous steps to use his groundbreaking feature for something like 20 months. Those are real dollars removed from that developer's pocket. He's still selling copies of his game, of a virtual desktop. He's still able to access a large audience, but literally the number of dollars being thrown into his pocket is less because of these extra hoops this developer has to jump through. And then, of course, very recently, he got permission to release that feature into the store right before Facebook actually released its own Airlink feature. We've also got 6Live and the Oculus Move app, where Facebook kind of said, we want to have activity tracking. We want to lock down that area. I think that's a little bit of there's like a lot of situations there where, like, I don't know, it was kind of obvious to me that Facebook was going to lock down activity tracking all along. But the other things, you are only allowing certain businesses to exist on your platform if you're taking a 30% cut across the board. And that's the type of issue that I think the government is looking into at this point.
I'm just so frustrated. I mean, I keep thinking about Pepsi. And I think about how many products are owned by Pepsi that I consumed in my youth. And I think, wow, like, did Pepsi have a monopoly on my teenage years? I mean, Doritos, Mountain Dew. I lived on those things. Well, I mean, you wouldn't know it by looking at my avatar today, but yeah, I wonder about this concept of a monopoly or anti-competitive practices, which is the new fun way of saying it, or maybe there might be slightly different. I'm not a lawyer. Don't ask me. Even though I'm dressed like I play one on TV today. Hey, I totally have to change this outfit. But do you agree, Ian, that Meta should be investigated for anti-competitive practices specifically because of what they're doing with Supernatural?
That's a really hard question for me to answer. I'll plead the fifth and go with a non-answer on that one. I think, um, an interesting framing of this would be it's very hard for us to imagine how the world would have looked if there had been a very different route to the last 8 years. If there had been a decade-long partnership between Valve and Oculus, and Oculus had raised $5 to $10 billion and done what Magic Leap tried to do. There was a scenario maybe in a multiverse where that very different history unfolded, and it's hard for us to look back at history and imagine it having gone any other way. There's people like Denny over at Cloudhead. He's constantly on Twitter talking about these very intricate, complicated issues of just where would this market be without Facebook's continued investment, particularly past those 2 years of like 2017 to 2018, when it became very clear that the PC VR market was not everything all the manufacturers had hoped it would. Standalone was kind of the key, and Facebook did push through first there. But here's the thing I think that complicates all of like the acquisitions on all that. The $400 and then $300 price and even $200 price that we saw heading into even now, right? You can still go and get a refurbished Quest 2 in certain circumstances for $200. And I think you can easily point to Google and HTC as competitors that could not compete. It just flat out, we're going to compete in a completely different segment of the market, and we have to educate all of our customers that that's the case, and we do not compete in any of the same places as Facebook. That's how significant that price difference is, and I think there's a lot of arguments to be made that you've got a couple competitors there that were immediately scared out of the market because of the price.
There's definitely a valid argument to be made that when it comes to hardware, there's very real anti-competitive practices. But it is very interesting, as some of the commenters have pointed out, that this would become an issue over the fitness market. I think the VR software market is far too early for there to be any kind of consolidation. The idea that buying Supernatural is somehow going to have some multi-decade effects on the market seems like a bit of a leap to me. I imagine that the biggest apps in VR haven't even been made yet. Just like none of the apps that launched just as the iPhone came out are the big apps that are used today at scale. These were all apps that came as the hardware improved and the market grew and different people with new ideas came in. I think there's enough kind of innovation in startups that we will see fitness apps come out that take on Supernatural and are even better than it in the next 10 years.
Competition drives quality. I've made that comment numerous times with my shoulder way up in the air. Competition drives quality. Competition means more quality products beating out the others. I guess we're not going to address the fact that our stream went down when I was about to read a quote that Skiva had posted from Jason Rubin about controlling the metaverse. But okay. Anyway, we'll just move on. I mean, of all the things, fitness, I mean, I don't know how many of you over the holiday season had folks call you or text you or whatever, people, family, friends, neighbors that you don't talk to typically, but they know you're the person who knows about VR. You get a message from them that says, hey, I've seen these commercials and I've seen this stuff about fitness in VR, and the 8 treadmills and bikes and bouncy balls and all the other things that, the elastic stretchy things and the Thigh Master and the Suzanne Summers stuff, none of that worked. But what do I need to know? And I had that conversation several times over the holiday season. I don't know, Ian, did you experience that as well?
Yeah, I have a Quest set up at my mom's house, and she's, she flat out said, Supernatural is the thing that she was interested in using VR for. And it's been, Harry wrote that article about how terrible the user interface is on Meta headsets, and like it has been just horrific to try to explain how to literally just launch the Supernatural app from the menu system on a Quest remotely over the phone. Like it's doable.
So Pixel, I want to address your Pixel is saying competition does not drive quality in VR area. Where is hand tracking for Index? People hated the Rift S. Don't support. Okay, the reason why competition drives quality is because if the Index doesn't have hand tracking, it's not the higher quality product. So it doesn't survive, and the Quest does. So the definition of quality, hey, look at that. I love that. The definition of quality is what we're actually having a conversation about here. The debate with you, Pixel, is what is considered quality. Just because the Pixel, or just because the Index has a higher resolution or has other features that might make it better quality, doesn't make it overall a better quality product. I hope that makes sense for you. So yeah, I mean, Supernatural actually requires my shoulder wants to know, Supernatural, you have to have a subscription, right? It costs like a monthly. Yeah. I wonder do we know how many people use Supernatural? Are there any like specific numbers of subscribers? Like what is the potential revenue?
They haven't said anything publicly. Yeah, they haven't said anything publicly. I had two Supernatural sort of people in our studio previously. I had Leanne, one of the coaches, and also Chesney, one of like a super fan of the app. And I was really proud that we had them sort of in the studio to ask them the same question, and that's, will VR fitness become bigger than like gym fitness? And I've got Chesney was a little bit more confident than Leanne was, but they were both like, my answer changed over the course of the recent history. Like there's a good chance, like is what my takeaway from both of them was, that yeah, there's a real good chance that we could see VR fitness outstrip the size of like going to the gym fitness. And Chesney pointed it out so wonderfully. I don't want to go to a physical gym and be judged by the other people there looking at me on the beginning of like my journey. I would rather begin that journey privately. And I think there's millions and millions of people who could go on that journey with headsets over the next few years.
If Meta separates the Facebook login from their Quest products, the idea of the anti-competitive practices go away, or does that have nothing to do with any of this?
Interesting question. I think some of the, Heaney has brought up the act of tying the account being a key one, but then there's this other argument of just squelching competition by acquiring it, or by making it impossible for anyone to compete. So like the thing that I kind of went into the history books, do you remember, what is it? Extend, it's a support, extend, extinguish, whatever Microsoft's, I can't remember what the first word is. Embrace, extend, extinguish. That's right.
Yeah.
That's what Microsoft did. And so like first you embrace a standard, then you add on new things to it, and then you stop supporting the original standard, and everyone is kind of attached to your version of it. And I haven't seen any indication that like a compelling reason, like a compelling argument that Meta has done that yet. I think there's the argument that people are threatening that Meta could do that in the near future and lock out meaningful new entrants from coming into this space.
Heaney, do you believe that anything will come of the FTC's investigation into Meta? Do you think anything other than just a big hearing with a bunch of C-SPAN crap, do you think that anything will actually come from this investigation?
So I'm not American, but my understanding is that this new FTC head, Lena Khan, is definitely more pro-action than previous heads, and it seems like Biden appointed her with the intention of taking on some of the tech giants, whereas for the past 10 years they've been very lax. One of the things we were talking about last year was the fact that they are kind of disputing the acquisition of Instagram, but of course they had the chance to look over the application of the acquisition of Instagram and they approved it. So we're looking at a very different FTC than 10 or so years ago, and I think we may actually see action in this kind of regulatory space for the first time. But that's only my read on it as an outsider. I'm not American. I don't have a direct pulse on American kind of regulatory politics.
And that's why I asked you, because an outside person outside looking in, I was just curious what your take on it was. Now, let's say that they end up being told you have to sell Supernatural to somebody to get rid of this problem. Who buys Supernatural? Ian, who do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the record. I've got it in my Twitter history of saying Apple or Facebook seemed like the likeliest companies to buy Supernatural, and sure enough, one of the two.
Facebook owns
did it.
Supernatural. Like I said, if they sell it, so you think if Apple buys it?
No, I mean
what
that's the
VR
thing. Apple's got Apple Fitness. They've built their own. I don't quite understand the idea of Supernatural being anything particularly unique at this point in time. Like they literally, if you can look at what Supernatural did, and they built a Beat Saber tuned for fitness, and I don't see any reason why anyone else can't do the exact same thing given 6 to 12 months. When I say anybody else, you have to have the lawyers to iron out the music agreements, but that's it.
I do think it's kind of interesting that, the big news last week is that Microsoft can somehow buy the developer of Call of Duty and World of Warcraft for 70 billion and essentially consolidate the game market. Absolutely not one word from any regulator that I've heard so far. Obviously, it will have to go through approval, but we haven't heard anyone like Lena Khan or any of the administration talk about that being an issue. And Meta go and buy some relatively small in the grand scheme of things VR fitness app, and suddenly it's the biggest deal in the world. There does seem to be a regulatory bias towards Meta, and I think it's because they feel bad for dropping the ball on regulation for a decade, that now they're trying to kind of overreact and make sure that they act on every possible Meta action. And the problem is I don't think that's going to hold up as well in the courts as they may hope, because the courts are going to say, you need to, if just because you didn't do it properly in the past, it doesn't mean you can go over proportional in the present. It still needs to be proportional to the actual magnitude of the issue.
I think my point that I kind of want to make here is they're not going to just turn Supernatural off to get the government off their backs. So they're going to sell it to somebody. And if they sell it to somebody, it's going to be a company that has other stakes in the VR space. So who is going to, number one, be able to afford to purchase Supernatural? My shoulder is really interested in that one. Sorry, I'm obsessed with the shoulder thing. Number two, who can buy it without them now? Like, is there just like this like red A, this like stain on whoever buys Supernatural is going to end up being investigated if they own any other VR products? Like, what if Lynx decides to? What if the company that is making the Lynx headset, like Ian, you suggested Apple could buy it, but they already own fitness, so why would they? Or if they do, is it less of a big deal? That would be the question I would want to know. I would want to know that if Apple owned Supernatural, would this investigation be happening on Apple? They already have a fitness program, a big one, a very well-established one. If they bought Supernatural for their VR headset, is it anti-competitive?
So two thoughts here. I mean, Heaney and Kyle, you guys do remember me being on the record saying I was expecting unexpected large size partnerships in this next phase of computing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine people like Valve and Apple teaming up. Like, that's the scale of team ups needed at this point, and that's what we just saw happen over there with what Heaney was just talking about. Like, that's $70 billion is untold size deals happening to make sort of like getting all these building blocks in place. And I think there's plenty of valid arguments that, like, what pieces doesn't Apple have, and they actually need to chuck $150 billion at a couple organizations to actually, get the right pieces for their own, efforts. The thing, like, yeah, the scale of a lot of these things are the real question. I got to go back here to, like, I'm just absolutely kind of convinced that AR and VR is going to break politicians more than they already are broken. Like, the disconnect between the people who actually use these technologies and the people who are legislating about these technologies is going to be more significant as soon as we get to discussions of, like, do we let these systems block real world advertisements or, like, alter? Yeah, there's. I heard this argument made recently that the first main camera on a car is actually AR.
Repeat your sentence. I accidentally alt tabbed. Repeat the sentence.
Oh no.
Yeah, there's this argument to be made.
Here.
You ready?
Yeah, no. I said just repeat the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, so I think there's an argument to be made. I heard this recently, that the reverse camera on your cars that's standard across all cars right now is the first mainstream AR technology, and it's used by literally everyone who backs up in their car. But that's a safety feature where you have to trust the technology not to, like, hide a kid in real time in your real time camera view, and provides an actual safety feature. The AR and VR is going to invade our lives really, really rapidly and augment large behaviors more so than anything before. Like, texting and driving is meaningless when people can, like, exchange every other car on the road for an X-Wing, right? Like, how do those discussions with our legislators go when, like, grandpa legislator's 85 years old and hasn't used a computer in 25 years? Like, that's the person going to be deciding the policy for VR headsets going forward. That just doesn't seem feasible.
I mean, we've all seen the Saturday Night Live skits where they have the committee, the congressional panel asking questions to the tech people, and it do be like that, though. I mean, it really is like that. Unfortunately, the people who are making the legislation are not the people who understand it the most. That is just the way of the world, man. Like, we can't do anything about that, unfortunately. When I look at stuff like this, though, like, I want there to be fair practice. I want it to be a level playing ground. And I don't want the people that more money means you win more. I know that that's how most games work, but I want these things to not be investigated afterwards. I want them to be prevented. So,
I've had that discussion for years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get that. I remember I asked a decade ago now, right before. So a decade ago now, 10 years, if you're looking at a calendar, is right about the time that Mark Zuckerberg is spotted in an elevator in Irvine, visiting Oculus headquarters, and some random Redditor is like, I just saw Mark in Oculus's building, and everyone disregarded the comment at the time, and turned out he was actually acquiring Oculus. I did a story back then, and I interviewed Paul Merlucky, and I'm asking him at the time, like, is it going to do more harm than good? Right? Is VR going to do more harm than good? And he's like, yeah, well, stories are dystopian because drama sells, makes for an interesting story. I think that VR is going to do more good than harm over the long term, that the good is going to outweigh the bad. And that's, if you go across all technologists, everyone who's building this technology at their very core, that is their argument for building this stuff. And we can correct laws for it after to prevent ills from happening. But to your point, Kyle, we don't want, I don't know, millions of people becoming dissociated from reality in clinical ways because their headset's frame rate was unhealthy. I don't know what feasibly could cause an issue, but those are the types of things we want to make sure that there are bodies regulating ethical use of these technologies.
Yeah, I don't know. I get frustrated at the fact that, watching people who don't understand it trying to regulate it, whatever their age, whatever their affiliations, whatever their political agendas may be, if you don't understand it, you shouldn't be making rules about it. And on top of that, we've got companies who are just trying to, well, I'll just leave it at that. Yes. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of, that's a much bigger conversation about how politics and government work, and we all have our own opinions on that. But it kind of sucks that we've spent this amount of time talking about this subject that shouldn't even be a news subject in the first place, but it is.
So the thing I would like to see discussed, the conversation we need to have with regulators and the experts who are actually drafting these laws, is how does the law need to change to manage the use of metadata in ways that serve the public good, right? There's plenty of people who feel tracked and unnecessarily recorded by their online history, right? We have a credit history that kind of falls off after X amount of years. Where's the equivalent of all your online information? Is there anything like this? Heaney, I do want to it's going to be so interesting to see how things affect you in the EU or near EU over time, as there's different social things over there.
Yeah, the EU, obviously the UK is just out of the EU for 1 year, but in general, the EU does seem to have a more proactive regulation kind of strategy. And it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, GDPR had advantages, but it also had some pretty pointless results, such as the fact that every single website you go on has a cookie notice that realistically doesn't actually really offer the user anything of importance. It's just a distraction. The question is, will we see meaningful regulation from the EU this time, or will it be more kind of fluff that's designed to look like they're heavily regulating, but not really addressing the core of the problems?
Well, I'll tell you what the important thing is. I'm going to hold out until Web 4 becomes a thing. And Heaney, is my new avatar fungible? Can you funge me? Can you funge this right avatar?
Now. Try and funge it right now. If you can't do it, then it's non-fungible.
Heaney,
I don't know. You've watched. Ian's been funging his avatar the whole show.
Yeah, I was. So there's this over on Twitter, right? They've got those NFT stupid little squares.
Yeah, I got a whole collection of them on my iPhone. I've been saving them, screenshotting.
Oh my! I hate it so much, right? It's so what's wrong with the internet? That whole feature, right? I requested. The photo that I have as my Twitter avatar was by request. I contacted the Orange County Register and said, hey, can I use the photo that was taken of me during my first demo of the Oculus back in 2012? And I got personal permission from the editor at the time to leave that as my thing. But do I go, it's really messed up to go and mint that image that was taken by another, a very skilled photographer out there. And because I want a shape of my picture that's in this shape, not a circle shape. That's just messed up to encourage people to do
You know,
that.
it's funny you're talking about that photo of you with like the taped together Oculus headset. I actually have that printed big 18 by 24 and framed in right here in front of me. So how does that make you feel? Do you feel funged?
I feel bad for the photographer. You didn't pay that photographer for their work. I sought permission to use it as my profile picture. You didn't talk to that photographer before you printed it out and took it to Walgreens.
Yeah. Well, somebody sent me a picture of their wall and they've got a picture of my mom up on, and I was like, mother funger, what did you just do? I don't know. All right. Hey, we've got one more piece of news. Do you want to?
No, I think it's time to the last piece of news.
Yeah, let's put. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of freeze frame need.
No, I don't think we need an image because there is no.
We don't need an
prototype
image. All right.
We don't have any visuals for Project Iris, which is
all right. Well, funge it. We're doing it live then. Reports claim that Google is working on Project Iris, an AR headset named after somebody's grandmother. Google is working on a pass-through AR headset codenamed. I don't have any information about that. Oh my! Did you hear that?
Did Google just activate
your Google Assistant?
It did, and it told me it didn't have any information on that. Ooh. Hey Google, what is Project Iris?
Here's a summary from the website TheVerge.com. Project Iris is a tightly kept secret inside Google, tucked away in a building that requires special keycard access and non-disclosure agreements. I've heard that Google is hoping to ship Starline by 2020.
This is how we're going to do the show from now on. Kyle's
is that what we're going to do?
Ask for input.
I think we're just going to
live
ask our smart devices to. Wow, that was kind of spooky and unsettling, and yet totally awesome at the same time. My shoulders approve. Okay. Wow. So Project Iris aimed to ship in 2024, and The Verge and my smart appliance in my bedroom have both told us about this. So this is not Google Glass 2 or 3 or 4. This isn't just Google Glass. This is an actual headset. But it does feel like it's going to be pass-through. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah. So as your Google Assistant rightly pointed out, this is from a report from The Verge's Alex Heath. And the claim here is that Google is working on an AR headset that is not using transparent optics. So it's not like a Google Glass or a HoloLens or a Magic Leap. It is essentially like a Lynx or Project Cambria or like Apple's headset that's rumored to come out next year, where the idea is it's a VR headset like display system, but with high resolution, high quality color cameras on the front to pass through the real world. And so the advantage of that is that you get the very wide field of view and full opacity that you get from VR headsets. But the disadvantage, obviously, is that you can't see people's eyes. The interesting thing about this report is that it suggested that this headset may use cloud rendering technology, where instead of having the graphics rendered locally, like you see on Quest 2, or even on the Lynx, or again on Apple's headset, they may use Google's existing Stadia infrastructure around the world to remotely render the highest graphical fidelity. And there wasn't any detail in the report about exactly how that would work. But what's interesting to me is that obviously this headset is going to be focused around AR, but there's no reason that a pass-through AR headset can't also do VR. And if they are able to get VR running with a sensible latency from cloud rendering, they could produce something that actually goes beyond even Apple's headset when it comes to visual fidelity. And obviously, a lot of people are instantly going to say, oh, Stadia is barely low enough latency for normal gaming. What about VR? But you have to remember that in VR, you can, because you have the head tracking position of the user and their hand tracking, you can reproject the image towards where you've moved, which means that you can actually have a reduced latency. Whether they'll be able to actually pull that off, who knows? But I do think it's an interesting kind of unique take on this, where Google's saying, we're not just going to put out a headset like everyone else. We're going to try and add our own Google Cloud flair to it.
The report, the bit of this report that I thought was really interesting was there was mention of Starline being mentioned paired with the headset technology. So Starline was like their headset free, completely auto stereoscopic display technology. And if you think about Google trying to build the fundamental like service layers of this technology. Like the thing I've heard quite recently is people are confusing platforms with protocols, and like there are a few fundamental protocols like cloud rendering and avatars and world generation, portal building, how we actually link from world to world, that like Google may need to get right in something like Starline. Like literally, how do 3D calls work 5 years from now? And that's what I think Starline and Iris could kind of be a North Star for Google to pursue.
Yeah, so as you point out, Starline is also supposed to, according to this report, come out in 2024. And for people who aren't aware, Starline is basically a massive portrait angled 3-dimensional video calling system, almost like a little photo booth you would go into to get your picture taken, but it's a massive fully 3-dimensional display with no headset or glasses needed. Now, Starline, I think there's been a lot of hype around this, but personally, I don't care for the simple reason that it is going to be so expensive that it will be used by Fortune 500 companies to conduct remote meetings, and maybe there'll be one you can rent at an airport for a ridiculous amount of money. But the great thing about headsets is that you can deliver an experience like this at a cost people can actually afford. So I think that's why Iris interests me personally a lot more than Starline, but I guess it is cool technology if you're very rich or a large company.
Isn't Starline the name of the company that produced the ship, the Titanic? Wasn't that called Starline? I don't know. Somebody Google that for me.
What do you think? Do you think we could see, those fold-out phones that we're seeing sort of get big now? Do you think they could use that for sort of like a 3D display, where like if you've got a face tracking sensor on a fold-out display, could you have, I don't know, like a Starline call where someone goes to their Starline room at the Fortune 500 company and then uses a handheld device that projects, I don't know, a 3D picture right in front of the display?
Well, maybe, but the magic of Starline isn't the 3D. The 3D is a very, very cool part, but the magic of it is that it's human scale. And that's what really makes you feel like you're in the room with someone else. And it's why no video calls today actually feel like you're talking to someone, because it doesn't look like they're at the real scale of a human. A little tiny hologram in front of you is never going to feel like you're actually sitting across from someone. What Starline delivers is that feeling, but that's the feeling that AR and VR can potentially deliver. Obviously today we have these very primitive avatar systems and there's no face tracking yet or eye tracking other than in some expensive enthusiast hardware. But when VR can deliver close to photoreal avatars with face tracking and eye tracking and full body tracking for a couple of $100, I don't understand why people would go out and get something that's likely going to cost at minimum a few $1,000s and have to sit in one specific position in your home.
White Star Line was the name of the British shipbuilding company that built the Titanic. Just saying. I just Googled it.
Why didn't you ask Google?
Oh, well, because I didn't want 64 other people's Googles to also answer the question and interrupt. Okay, so Skiva mentions this, that Google has a horrible track record of starting projects, putting them out to the general public, and then discontinuing. I really hope they stick with this for long enough for some innovation. I agree totally. Google has, Cardboard was one of those 20% projects, one day out of a 5-day work week where somebody can go and fiddle with whatever they want. A Google employee can go do whatever they want for 20% of their time, which I think is cool. Cardboard came out of that, and that has actually, when you look at the grand scheme of everything we've been through, Cardboard was very disruptive to the current stream, or where things were going with VR. Cardboard changed a lot of stuff. Conversations about mobile VR changed when Cardboard came out, because the feasibility of it all came. And who knows where we would all be attached to computers right now, maybe, if it hadn't been for Cardboard. I don't know. It's speculation. Don't think, but we think that Google has the potential to, and I'll tell you right now, pass-through AR is, I love that. I want that. I want pass-through AR more than I want transparent AR. Like I really do want that. I think there's more capabilities for it. I think there's a lot more potential. Obviously, the technical challenges are a lot different. Field of view, latency, those kind of things. Lenses, completely different technique, technical setup for how the lenses and screens work, but I think pass-through is definitely the way to go. I'm looking forward to pass-through. Yeah. So
Yeah, it looks like that's why we see Meta and Google and Apple all going down that path. But just to come back to Skiva's comment, where I really think that comes important is in Google trying to get developers on board. Because as Skiva points out, Google has started so many of these projects and products and platforms, and then a few years later, gets bored of it or loses a few engineers or decides it wasn't big enough and then just completely kills the whole thing. And imagine if you're a developer deciding where are you going to spend your time developing. Obviously, OpenXR is going to make it easier, but there's still going to be platform-specific issues and kind of Google Play Store integrations that they're going to have to take time to use. And would you really pick that over supporting some other platform if you've always got this idea in the back of your mind, am I going to do all this work and then a year later Google decides to not support the platform anymore? And that's going to be a serious issue for Google.
Here's what I think will end up happening is, like, we're all three on Quests right now, which are essentially Android powered devices. They're Android phones in their Gear VR. They're S6s inside of a headset with some fancy stuff attached to it. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's just the next evolution of that. And this wouldn't exist without the Android operating system, which wouldn't exist without Google. Google has a lot of the components already laying around. That's why Cardboard came into existence. Cardboard didn't get dismantled. Daydream didn't get dismantled. They just didn't do anything else with it. So there are people out there right now, I see them on the internet all the time, talking how they are actively trying to get their Gear VR to work. There's Daydream forums where people are constantly trying to do updates that Google isn't choosing to do. It's not like they're saying, okay, everybody send them back. We want them back into our Google warehouses. You can't have them anymore. They just aren't doing anything more further with it. Having an open architecture, having an Android operating system. This is why I'm actually happy that, like, maybe we don't get a proprietary operating system for future Meta headsets, is that, because their guy went to Google, didn't he? I mean, their operating system guy went to Google, and I mean, what's Google going to do? Throw them on, make a better version of Android for a VR headset with pass-through, and everybody's going to be like, Cambria, what's that? Like, I don't know. It's all possible. It's all very possible. I don't think Google is going to drop this time in the way that everybody's referring to.
Actually working on a new operating system at Google based on some of their job listings and bringing in Lukovsky. It's another one of those situations where, just like Meta, in the short term, they're likely to bet on Android, but in the long term, these new class of devices are going to need operating systems specifically designed for them. And we know Apple is doing that with ROS. So the question is, are Meta and Google going to sit with all the disadvantages of Android for 10, 20 years? I don't think so. We know Google actually is already working on a new operating system for all classes of device, including their smart home devices, called Fuchsia. It's actually been in the work for something like 7 years, maybe even longer, and it's only starting to deploy in devices. And that is the problem with these operating system projects. And we've seen conflicting reports recently about whether Meta's operating system project is still going ahead because they've lost Mark Lukovsky, who says he quit after watching the Facebook whistleblower Francis Haugen on talk to the US, either Congress or Senate. I'm not sure which it was. So Zuckerberg's going to have a lot of those issues where over time he may get this very important engineer in and put them on a massive project and find that because of ethical issues or because of competitors snatching them up, they're going to have to kind of realign their expectations on what they can really produce. And I think where that's really going to be a big problem is in their custom chip project, because we know Meta wants to be able to make its own chips like Apple, but can it retain the talent that it takes to build those projects over 5 or 10 years is the real question.
Heaney, do you think by the end of this year we will have multiple standalone headsets with these multiple avatar systems and multiple standalone?
Well, it really all depends on Lynx. Lynx is scheduled to release this year. If they are able to make that target, absolutely, yeah. But obviously, Kickstarter projects often are delayed. There are global supply chain issues right now that are unpredictable and can kind of get worse out of nowhere for months on end. I wouldn't at this point bet on any hardware launching on its schedule for the next few years, but I certainly hope so. And I think Stan is doing great work over at Lynx, and he's really passionate about VR, and they've actually been talking to suppliers for years to try and get those displays and the chips that they need. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to have I have avatar anxiety. I don't know who I am anymore. I see myself on the screen and I see myself in the video and I see Ian, who still doesn't look like Ian. All right. Well, I'm going to go take my avatar and I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to put some deck shoes on with no socks. Go to the store with this avatar. I'm going to go pick up some, Cristal and maybe some bean dip. I don't know. God, I swear, seriously, I'm having some major identity crisis right now. This is not good. Like, why am I craving a kale salad? I don't know.
Why? Yeah, wait, all those depictions of like the AR future with like glowing everything. Why don't they just show all the people replaced with these weird cartoon people? Because that's like clearly that's as far as they've gotten as platform companies is. Yeah, it's replace those people with cartoon people. I thank you for bringing us these avatars. As much as we've made fun of them, it's pretty cool. I was looking forward to this moment of coming in here and experiencing this horror, this body horror.
I was gonna go right after the show and I was gonna tweak my avatar. Now, I might just keep it just because it's funny. Like, this is bro Kyle. I like this.
You as the jerk from Die Hard is doing it for me. Like it is. Listen, I can't think of all the things he says. Come on. Come on. That's all I do.
Come on. You know who I think I look like? You know how I think I look like? I look like the dude that loses his arm in the movie The Fly with Jeff Goldblum. What?
I can't get any further.
Okay, I'm gonna come to you. Okay. Wait, what is happening here?
Wait. Get camera on me.
Switch camera. Camera two. There we go.
Wait,
okay, here we go.
Got
it.
All right, here. Wait.
Bro, here, pound it.
Snap your arm right off.
Okay. Oh my God, this is terrible. This is terrible. So I'm gonna start a new group, the Kyle Bros, the Kyle Avatar Bros. That's what we're gonna do going forward. No. We're gonna have this whole club, and everybody who wants to be a Kyle Bro has to have this outfit on, but then your own like look. So, yeah. Heaney, can we switch cameras one more time? We'll close the show out there. Yeah, because I got to go refill my. Oh God, there's just so many funny jokes I could do. All right, wait, what are we grabbing our joysticks? I got one.
We have controller support as well. The Meta avatars
at least he doesn't have smooth locomotion here. Like I'm not just like go-karting around this office.
You'll see this. Here, look at me. I think this is a moving supernatural, isn't it? I'm about to get investigated. Okay.
I have 2% battery left, so we're gonna have to wrap this up.
No, right. You gotta die. You gotta die live on the air then. Right? We gotta be staring at you.
I don't know about that. I feel no. Rest in peace.
1%.
1%. All right.
I don't know.
Okay, everybody. Well, like and subscribe and smash that button. Hey, YouTube, cool. No, seriously though, do like and subscribe. Oh, now that I've lost my hands because look at this. Like I'm like some sort of like weird spider guy now. Okay. Anyway, like and subscribe. Hit that bell. Share. Tell your friends. Tell your grandma to come and watch. And Ian, what are you doing there? Okay. And check out UploadVR.com for all your latest news, reviews, comments, and interviews from the VR, AR, MR, XR, PR, QR industries. Yes, from all of us here to all of you out there, wherever you are, remember, we'll see you.